right, guys, we are now in the finale segment. So, guys, the finale segment is going to be about Jada and Will and the red table. So, remember, Jada back a couple weeks ago said that she was going to put herself at the red table. And we were wondering who her guests were going to be. But, to no surprise, her guest was Will, her husband. So, pretty much her and Will went to the table and they expressed everything that they had to say at the red table. So the conversation started with the both of them pretty much just admitting that they went through a lot, and during that time they said nothing purposefully because they felt like it was no one's business. They kept everything to themselves, but at that time, they were going through a ton. So they mentioned that they were separated. So Jada had said they broke up. Will had said, they had separated. And pretty much that whole surfacing clip of Jada saying Will was going to do what he was going to do and she was going to do what she was going to do, that is really what it was. They really were going to do what they wanted to do. So in the meantime, they had met August. Now, remind you guys, this all happened around 4.5 years ago. And that's when they met August. Now, when they did meet August, he was very, very sick. Now, last year, August said that he was practically sick throughout the entire year. He stayed sick. He stayed in and out of the hospital because August has a very, very weak immune system. And when they met him, he was struggling and battling for his life. And they explained that when they met him, he was, very at a low point in his life. And they tried to help him as much as possible to heal. So they used that moment in his life to try to help someone in need. And Will was even a part of helping, They also mentioned that, they brought him into their family, introduced them to their family, and really, had a bond and a connection with them. Now, at this point, Jada and Will, as they stated, they were at their lows. So when they were at their lows, Jada spent a lot more time with August in the meantime. And, Will spent a lot of his time doing his own thing, So in that moment, Jada was saying that she was kind of using the fact that August was there as a friend and the fact that August was in need of someone that actually needed her. So it made her feel a sense of, wow, someone needs me. Someone is actually dependent on me. So she kind of used that moment, and then in that moment, she formed a relationship with August. Now, in the midst of this whole red table talk, Jada tried to proclaim that this whole thing was an entanglement, and Will actually checked her on a lot of stuff. He checked her a couple times and was like, okay, Jada, what does that mean? Okay, Jada, what are we doing? Like, he had to get her together so she can admit things. So what it kind of seems like to me was that this wasn't only a red table talk to kind of clear the air for the world, but this was also a red table talk for her to clear the air with her husband. So, when this whole thing happened, she mentioned that it was an entanglement, and Will was like, so was it a relationship? And then she's like, yes, it was a relationship. So everything that August stated was absolutely true. They had a relationship, and that relationship, I believe, lasted for about 2 years. Now, the only part that they proclaimed was a lie on August's behalf was the part where he stated that he got Will's permission. Now, they said that this part was a lie simply because they think that maybe August, in the midst of everything, didn't want to be perceived as a homewrecker. But I feel like in the same sense, they're kind of also stating that yes, it was a whole permission type thing, because at the end of the day, there was still some sort of conversation that was had in the midst of all of this. If it wasn't him getting Will's permission, it was still him having some sort of a conversation with Will and missed this whole thing in a way of showing, hey, I'm not trying to be perceived as a homewrecker, but at the same time, I would like to, spend a little more quality time with your wife in a more romantic way. So I feel like they were just getting the misinterpretation of what August was saying. And then even Jada herself tried to kind of clean up what August was saying, but it was like they made it seem as if the whole permission thing was like a big deal breaker. But at the end of the day, it all makes sense when you kind of piece it back together. And then we go on to the fact that, August and Jada are now in a whole relationship. And, at the time where August and Jada were in this relationship, Jada and Will were at a point in their marriage where they despised one another. I believe in the interview, on the Red Table Talk interview, Will actually said that he could not stand Jada at that time. And she felt the same way about him. She could not stand him. So they were at a point where they were so done with each other that they were not even on speaking terms. It got to a point where they didn't even think that they were going to be at the point of where they were today. So this whole thing just was, misconstrued, because in the process of this whole thing, I believe Jada started giving August that pillow talk. And she started maybe telling him, hey, yeah, me and my husband, we're completely through. We're at the point of no return. We're completely done. There is no saving us. Because they were at that point in their marriage for real. This is why, August got so deeply invested and deeply rooted within this relationship. And he started feeling a different type of way, because Jada starts to say that at one point, within her and August being together, she started to realize ways in which she wanted to fix things with Will. So with that being said, she started, having more communication with Will in ways of how they can fix things. And when August was aware of everything and how everything started and went about, it made him angry. And he felt like, he didn't even want to have communication with Jada at this point, because, he was deeply invested in that relationship. And because of how much she helped him out, he kind of felt like he had someone that he can consider a life partner. But Jada had feelings to rekindle things within her relationship. So within this whole time, when that happened, August and Jada stopped talking, and they thought that was it. Now, here's where they kind of start throwing little shade at August, because they say they think that the whole thing is weird, that August came back after, all these years had passed, because it was so long ago. And they even kind of laughed about this whole thing. And they're even like, yeah, people might think we're crazy for laughing about this, but we're laughing because it was so long ago and because we thought everybody was over this. But, it's kind of weird that it's all coming up about. Now, here's the point where I kind of started piecing things together within my head. Now, August did say that he made phone calls to people, so they were well aware of what was going on. If he made phone calls to people about him having an interview with Angela Yee, then that means that he recently reached out to you and had a conversation with you. Whether it was a small little interaction or whether it was a huge interaction, he still reached out.
Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed that podcast, please be sure to tune in every Monday through Friday on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, and Anchor for the rest of that podcast.